the audience out there, this is a completely impromptu recording from me, Amanda, and my partner here, Adam. So we had not planned on recording anything today, but last night I ran across, well, I got stuck in a YouTube rabbit hole, honestly, and ran across some ideas that all of a sudden I was just like, I had to talk to Adam about this, and we might as well record it because it's going to be pretty interesting, because we're going to be talking about what your sense of identity is, and we're going to be looking at it from the points of view of Abraham Maslow, Eckhart Tolle, and from a totalitarianistic, I think that's the right way to say it, viewpoint. So pretty deep
I'm
stuff
interested.
here.
I didn't know about what the
I know.
topic was until now.
Right,
She's
yeah, I didn't say
thinking.
that. Yeah, Adam has no idea what we're talking about. But so this is the YouTube rabbit hole I got stuck in. I will give credit to the YouTube channel. Is called After School, and it's SKOOL. And it's really cool. What they do on that channel is they usually have like speeches from, inspiring people, and then they will like animate a video to go along with it. Like they'll do drawings while the person's speaking. So anyways, that's what After School is about. So all of these thoughts were actually brought about by After School videos. So I just want to give them a little credit. But anyways, so I'm watching this. So if anybody has watched this before, they know I'm a huge Abraham Maslow fan, and Adam obviously knows I'm a huge Abraham Maslow fan. But I was watching this video with Eckhart Tolle, a speech from Eckhart Tolle, and he was it was ego. I didn't write it down. I don't remember what the name of the episode was, but whatever. It was about the ego. And all of a sudden he was talking about that he started talking about almost Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but he didn't call it that. But the illustrator started drawing Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what Tolle said was, after you have your food and after you have your shelter, which are the bottom two rungs of Maslow's hierarchy, all your needs above that are basically to fulfill your sense of identity or your ego. He said all the needs above that are basically, he didn't say this because he wasn't talking in terms of Abraham Maslow. Like I said, that was the illustrator's take on it. But basically what he was saying is that any need you try to meet above your food and shelter, your basic needs, is an egoistic. Is that what I'm trying to say? An egoistic need. And all of a sudden that hit me, because I'm like, holy crap. I mean, I base a lot of my theories and a lot of my beliefs and things on this Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm like, I never thought of that they really are. Because so the top three rungs, for people who don't know, well, I guess I'd say all the rungs. So it starts out as a triangle shape, and at the bottom is your physiological needs, so like food, water, air, whatever. Then you go up to your safety needs, so shelter and things like that. Love, belonging is the next one, esteem, and then self-actualization are at the top. So love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization are all very egoistic, because they're all about self. They have nothing to do with other people. Well, that's not entirely true, but they're mostly focused on the self. And so anyways, all of a sudden it just kind of blew my mind, and I just had to get Adam's thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's
what are you thinking so far?
Well, I don't know. I guess, well, neither of us have probably had to look at those two bottom rungs of the hierarchy in a long time.
Right.
So yeah, we probably spend most of our time on those top three, just all of our worries, self-esteem, probably talking a lot about self-actualization. Yeah. I don't know. I think we've spent so much time talking about the ego, not as a bad thing, but for me, I certainly am mindful of the ego.
Right.
So it's kind of scary, because I'm like, whoa.
It is kind of scary, isn't it?
I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
Yeah, because that's...
Well, and he said, he went on, Tolle went on to say that this sense of identity, as he calls it, the sense of identity is something that humans desperately seek. And so then I got to thinking about that. I'm like, why do we desperately seek it so much?
Mm.
And then it kind of tied into this. So before that, I had watched this video about totalitarianism and how like a totalitarian society comes to be. So nice, lighthearted, fun video to watch.
Yeah. As
And
usual.
yes. And anyways, well, one thing that they're talking about in that video was that the human mind seeks to, like, when there's something that we don't understand, we seek to put a face to it or a shape to it or some kind of form to it. And like one example they use that is just really easy to wrap your head around, like they're talking about like the Salem witch trials, which I assume you know about that. Adam's in Australia.
No,
But I
I don't
mean,
really know much about that.
you probably can get the gist. Like,
Yeah.
and it happened in other countries too, but that's what in America was the Salem witch trials, where I don't know, weird things were happening in villages, like animals getting killed and stuff or whatever, and it was not explainable. So then all of a sudden somebody created this idea that, well, there must be witches, and then all of a sudden all these women got accused of being witches and got burned at the stake and all this stuff.
Ah, yes. Okay, I do know that.
So that was just like a perfect example, though, really, of when you can't explain something that's going on in the world, you create the scapegoat. Like that's just kind of what our minds do, because we have to be able to visualize whatever's being caused in the world. We have to be able to visualize what's causing it. So
Yeah.
then I thought, well, maybe, and this is my brain going crazy, maybe that's why we have to have this sense of identity, because it's so hard for us to understand the idea that we are a soul or that we are a consciousness. Like having the idea that we are consciousness separate from our body, separate from our mind. There's a consciousness separate from both those things. Like that's just too mind-blowing for us to comprehend.
Yeah.
So we are always trying to create this sense of identity and become self-actualized and all this stuff.
Yes.
Reconcile that.
Well, I think that's a good point, because I think, okay, without talking others down and stuff, right? There's probably more people than in the category that I consider us in, right? Of people who you start talking about consciousness and stuff, and they just roll their eyes and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's really woo woo.
Yep.
So I think at that, for most people, it is so beyond comprehension, they just deny it instantly. Whereas I think even for us, right, who've done a lot of research on it, when Tolle talks about consciousness, and when he talks about things like it's when you're completely still and the space between moments that you get to see what you truly are. Even for me now, I'm like, what does that mean though? I'm like, where do you find the stillness? Where do you find those moments? And maybe meditation or like mindfulness practices gives you a bit of an insight into it, but I still really don't comprehend it. So I think it is probably your brain, which I think we talked about a little bit with the whole VR headset. VR.
Oh yeah. I was thinking about that too. I'm like, we kind of talked about
I feel
that.
like our headset in a way does enable us. And for anyone who doesn't know, there's a guy, Dr. Donald Hoffman, who basically says that our brain is like a headset that helps us view reality, because we can't comprehend everything that's in reality, which makes sense. It's like a tool. So I feel like it's the same thing here, as it's like, as you say, we probably are trying to identify everything and put a face or a name to it, because it is so big and difficult to comprehend.
Yeah.
But there's pitfalls too, isn't there? Like, because the ego can be a dangerous thing if you let it go unchecked, where it's like you don't want to let yourself get too carried away with the identification stuff.
Right.
Because then you do get consumed by your ego, which is why so many people, make bad decisions or are mean to one another. So it's like you need to switch between those two, I think, to go, all right, of course I'm trying to identify this thing because it is very big, but I'm not going to get consumed by that. I need to step back and realize I am more than what I'm trying to identify as, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yes. Yeah, because I know, I mean, just from a practical standpoint, you have to have some kind of identity to live in
Yeah.
a society with other people, because other
Yeah.
people need to kind of know how to interact with you, if that
Mm.
makes any sense.
Mm.
Well, it helps you know how to interact with other people, and it helps them know how to interact with you.
Mm.
So I think you do need to, but I think you need to be aware. Maybe that's the key. Is it okay? So you're going to build this identity one way or another. You're going to build an identity because that's just how we are. So
Mm.
it's going to
Yeah.
happen regardless of whether you're aware of it or not.
Mm.
Maybe how you can take the ego out of the equation is being aware that you're doing that. And so that you're consciously building your identity to reflect your values and reflect,
Yes.
maybe that's it. Yeah.
I'm thinking about intention. It's we've talked about this already before we started recording, but intentional living, as you
Right.
say, rather than just getting caught up, which is very easy to do, just running through the decisions that you've made the day before or whatever. It's like just really consciously focus on crafting who you are,
Right.
not running on autopilot, which we all run on
We all
autopilot, and that's
do.
when
Yeah.
you get carried away.
But
Yeah.
you could catch yourself. Well, and that's the other thing we were talking about too, kind of before the show, is like Adam and I were talking about, even with us, it's like we've become pretty aware of ourselves and of our emotions and things. But sometimes we still decide, like sometimes like I will be very aware that I'm about to be a bitch, but I decide to be a bitch anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the same thing where you might be very aware that how you're choosing to identify yourself is very egoistic or egotistical or whatever, but you might do it anyway just because. So
Yeah.
just because you're aware of it doesn't mean that you're not going to do it either.
Yeah. Because I think there'll be a
Yeah.
number of situations where you're like, no, I'm not willing to act on, you still have the choice. So
Right.
it's like, all right, I choose not to be anything but the ego kind of person, that
Right.
I know I can be in this situation.
Right.
So
Exactly. Because sometimes you just do.
yeah, just because we're human beings and we're like, nah.
Yes.
Because I mean, I think the other thing to acknowledge here, and we've talked about this before, but is it takes a lot of energy sometimes to
Right.
be aware and to live intentionally and to and to kind of act in a values-based way. Sometimes it's
Yes.
easier to just switch into autopilot mode,
Right.
especially if you're like physically tired or something like that. You just go, whatever, just let it
Absolutely.
kind of run its course.
Yeah.
But it's not good if you don't allow yourself to live intentionally.
Right.
I think you need to. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, and not to give yourself a pass, like,
Mm.
that like, oh, I'm just human, so I'm just this, I'm just going to be this way, blah blah blah. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily to give yourself a pass, but it's more just to have some compassion for yourself, just like you
Yeah.
have compassion for anyone else, that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
even though you know what to do, that doesn't mean you're going to always do it, and that's
Yep.
okay. I mean, maybe
Mm.
you'll do it the next time.
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
still aware of it, so there's still a pretty good chance you're going to do it down the road. Maybe not the next time, but eventually, whatever it is. So say, like, I'll use my example of, turning bitch Amanda on. Maybe one day down the road, I will make the decision to not do that because I am
Yep.
aware of it. So, I think it's out there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. So is the point, I suppose, that yes, those three, because I agree. I think when we think about them, it's scary. I don't like thinking about them this way, but
I know, I didn't like it
the
either, but
information's out there now. You can't take it back. But
right.
those three rungs are ego. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but in knowing that, you then have a choice. It's like you can go on autopilot and
Yeah.
you can have some compassion for yourself. But where you really should go, which is, something you and I have always kind of strive for, is to live intentionally and to say, okay, well, I know when I'm pursuing this job or something like that, it's like, this is a self-esteem need potentially, or
Yeah.
and it's self-actualization need.
Right.
It's like, but these are inherently egoistic. So I need to be careful because unlike the
Right.
two
That's
bottom
true.
kind of
That's
parts
true.
of the pyramid, it's like, I don't know, they're pretty easy, those ones. Like,
They're
I'm not
not
saying it's
ego.
easy for everyone
Yeah.
to acquire them, but
But they're not, they're completely survival.
yes.
I mean, there is ego in there, I guess. And that was the other thing I actually, now I say that, that's the other thing that got my mind going. I'm like, is it egotistical even just to want to survive? Because,
Yeah,
um,
okay.
so anyways, but I mean, they're more survival.
I feel they're more biological, like it's
Right.
built into us, keep going, keep the human race going. I
Yes.
feel like they're out of our hands, someone
Well,
else has programmed that.
so I know that's the other interesting thing. It's like I guess you could say they all are egotistical in a way or egoistic, but yeah, those two do seem different.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people in the developed world would be in those, acting out of those three top parts of the pyramid.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, what you need to do is to say, and it's good, it's going to make me think about it differently now because I think what almost happens, I don't know about you, but when you kind of start pursuing that self-actualization, which,
Yeah.
as Amanda said to me before, just because you've, gone, okay, I've ticked the self-esteem needs, it doesn't mean that you have to then be like up to the next rung. You can
Right.
move along any of
Yeah.
those. So that's an interesting thing to consider. But, I'd say these days we probably spend a lot of time pursuing that self-actualization. But
Yes.
there's almost something kind of, what's the word? Like you kind of sit there, you're a bit smug, maybe,
Yes.
being like, or not smug, what's the word? But you kind of feel like, oh, look at me. Look
I
at
think
me.
smug
I'm
is a
trying
good
to
word.
become a self-actualized being. You
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of it's good for humanity. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
I know exactly what you mean. Yes,
yeah.
the ego starts kicking in again.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
going like already you're going, oh, look at me. I'm here.
Right.
And it's like, but you're
Look
thinking
how
about
much better
yourself.
I am than you
Yes.
because I know this and you don't know that. But
Yeah. So
I know.
the more you unpack this stuff, the more, yeah, it is all based on ego. So damn, you gotta be careful.
Yes, absolutely. I know. So that seems like a good place to end the conversation,
Yeah,
at least
it's
the recorded
interesting.
conversation. So,
Thank you for
all right.
sharing that with
Yes,
me.
absolutely. We might have to do more of these impromptu recordings
I
in
like
the
it. Yep,
future.
it's good.
So, whoever stuck around and listened to it, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
And
guys.
yeah, give us a like, a subscribe, all that good stuff. But we'll talk to
Yes.
you later.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Bye.